Finally, the Shield reunites as Seth Rollins joins Roman Reigns to destroy Bron Breakker. The Shield just reunited in the most explosive and emotionally devastating way imaginable, and what happened when Seth Rollins finally stood beside Roman Reigns again has completely obliterated Bron Breakker's championship dreams, shattered the entire main event landscape, and created a moment so powerful and so loaded with years of history that even people who swore they'd never forgive Seth for his original betrayal found themselves crying because of how perfectly this reunion captured everything that made the Shield special while acknowledging all the pain and betrayal that nearly destroyed their brotherhood forever. But what makes this reunion infinitely more significant than just another faction reforming is why it happened, who triggered it, and what Roman said to Seth during their face-to-face confrontation that finally convinced the architect that some bonds transcend ego, pride, and even years of justified resentment. But here's what's going to absolutely infuriate you and spark the most intense debate in wrestling history: the Shield didn't reunite because Roman and Seth suddenly forgave each other or because they realized friendship matters more than their differences. They reunited because Bron Breakker made the catastrophic mistake of attacking something they both consider sacred, the legacy of what the Shield accomplished and what it meant to an entire generation of wrestling fans. Bron's campaign to prove he's the future by systematically destroying the past pushed both Roman and Seth to a breaking point where their mutual hatred of watching someone disrespect their legacy became more important than their mutual hatred of each other. This isn't a heartwarming story of brothers reconciling, this is a story of two warriors with massive egos temporarily setting aside their blood feud because someone younger and hungrier threatened to erase the history they built together. The most shocking part is that Seth Rollins, the man who betrayed the Shield, who spent years fighting against Roman's tyranny, who swore he'd never enable the tribal chief's dominance again, was the one who approached Roman about reuniting. According to multiple sources, Seth went to Roman privately and said something that shocked everyone who heard about it: "I still think you're a narcissistic tyrant who corrupted everything we built together. I still think your reign as tribal chief represented everything wrong with WWE. I still don't forgive you for what you did to G and Jimmy." But Bron Breakker just cut a promo saying the Shield was overrated and that he's already accomplished more in 2 years than we did in our entire run. "And I'm not letting that disrespect stand, even if it means standing beside you one more time." And Roman's response to Seth's proposition is what has everyone questioning whether this reunion is genuine reconciliation or just two proud men who can't stand watching someone diminish their accomplishments. The tribal chief didn't welcome Seth with open arms or express gratitude that his former brother was willing to set aside their issues. Roman simply said, "The Shield's legacy is the only thing we built that was actually bigger than both of us. If some second-generation star who thinks being Rick Steiner's kid gives him the right to disrespect what we created needs to be reminded of his place, then we'll remind him together. But don't think this makes us brothers again. We're just two people who share something worth protecting." The question that's tearing the WWE universe apart is this: is the Shield's reunion a beautiful moment of reconciliation where brotherhood conquered pride, or is it a cynical alliance between two bitter enemies who temporarily need each other to destroy a common threat before they inevitably turn on each other again? Let me tell you exactly how this reunion happened, what Bron Breakker said that made it necessary, and what the systematic destruction of WWE's rising monster means for everyone involved. The build-up to the Shield's reunion started several weeks ago when Bron Breakker began a campaign specifically designed to position himself as the future of WWE by dismantling the legacy of past factions and proving that the current generation of talent is superior to the legends who came before them. Bron had been on an absolute tear, destroying veterans and rising stars alike, and his confidence had grown to the point where he felt comfortable targeting the most sacred faction in modern WWE history. During a promo segment on Monday Night Raw, Bron Breakker stood in the center of the ring and delivered what would become one of the most controversial speeches in recent wrestling memory. He called out the Shield directly, claiming that their reputation was built more on nostalgia and good timing than on actual dominance or revolutionary impact. "Everyone talks about the Shield like they were these unstoppable gods who changed wrestling forever," Bron said with visible contempt. "But when you actually look at what they accomplished, it's not that impressive. They came through the crowd wearing tactical gear and jumped people in 3-on-1 attacks. That's not revolutionary, that's cowardly. They won some tag team championships and had some memorable matches, but so has every other faction that lasted more than a year. The only reason people worship the Shield is because they happen to feature 3 guys who went on to successful singles careers after they broke up." Bron's voice grew more aggressive. "Well, I'm here to tell everyone the truth, the Shield is overrated. Roman Reigns built his real legacy after the Shield ended. Seth Rollins didn't become the architect until he betrayed his brothers. And Dean Ambrose had to leave WWE entirely to be taken seriously. The Shield wasn't the beginning of their success, it was something they had to overcome and move past to actually achieve greatness." The crowd's reaction was mixed. Some fans were booing the disrespect while others were intrigued by Bron's willingness to challenge sacred history. But Bron wasn't finished destroying the Shield's legacy. "And here's what really matters: I've accomplished more in 2 years as a singles competitor than the Shield accomplished in their entire run as a faction. I've won championships on my own merit. I've destroyed legends without needing 2 other guys to help me. I've proven that the future doesn't need to respect the past because the past wasn't as great as everyone pretends it was. The Shield was a stepping stone, not a destination. And anyone who thinks differently is living in nostalgia instead of reality. Bron's final statement was what ultimately sealed his fate, so if Roman Reigns or Seth Rollins or anyone else who thinks the Shield legacy is sacred has a problem with what I'm saying, they're welcome to step up and prove me wrong. But we all know they won't, because deep down, they know I'm right. The Shield is dead, its legacy is overrated, and I'm the future that's already better than they ever were. The promo went viral immediately, with wrestling fans passionately defending or criticizing Bron's assessment of the Shield's impact. But more importantly, the promo reached both Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins, and their initial reactions, delivered through separate social media posts, were remarkably similar in their barely contained fury at someone dismissing what they'd built together. Roman posted, "Some people mistake being young and talented for being wise and accomplished. Bron Breakker is about to learn a very expensive lesson about the difference." Seth posted, "Disrespect comes from people who don't understand what it takes to build something that lasts. The Shield didn't need to last forever to change WWE forever. And Bron is about to understand exactly what made us special." But it was the private conversation between Roman and Seth that truly set this reunion in motion. According to sources close to both men, Seth reached out to Roman through back channels and requested a face-to-face meeting to discuss Bron's promo and what, if anything, they should do about it. The meeting happened in a neutral location away from WWE venues, and by all accounts, it was tense and emotional. Seth and Roman hadn't spoken directly in years, and their relationship had been defined by betrayal, resentment, and conflicting visions for WWE's future. But Bron Breakker's disrespect of the Shield created common ground that transcended their personal issues. Seth reportedly opened the conversation by acknowledging the awkwardness. "I know we're not friends. I know you think I'm a traitor and I think you're a tyrant. I know we have about 100 reasons to never work together again. But I also know that what we did as the Shield mattered to millions of people, and I'm not going to let some kid who thinks family legacy gives him the right to disrespect our actual legacy get away with it." Roman's response was characteristically direct. "The Shield is the only thing we created that was bigger than our egos and our personal ambitions. It represented something pure before we all corrupted it with betrayal and power struggles. And you're right, I'm not letting Bron Breakker or anyone else diminish what we accomplished just because they're too young to have witnessed it firsthand or too arrogant to respect what came before them." The conversation reportedly lasted over 2 hours, with both men being brutally honest about their feelings toward each other while also acknowledging that protecting the Shield's legacy was worth temporarily setting aside their mutual animosity. They agreed on one thing: Bron Breakker needed to be systematically destroyed in a way that reminded everyone why the Shield was special and why disrespecting that legacy was a mistake that would be punished severely. But there was one missing piece to this reunion that made it incomplete and made both men hesitant to fully commit. The Shield was 3 men, not 2. Without Dean Ambrose, could they really claim to be reuniting the Shield, or were they just 2 former teammates temporarily working together? The solution to that problem came from an unexpected source. Dean Ambrose, who'd been working outside WWE and had kept his distance from both Roman and Seth since their various falling outs, saw Bron's promo and made a decision that shocked everyone. He posted a simple video message: "I'm not interested in full-time WWE wrestling anymore. But I'm very interested in making sure some punk kid understands that you don't disrespect the Shield without consequences. Roman, Seth, if you're actually doing this, I'm in for one night. Let's remind everyone why we mattered." The 3 brothers who'd been estranged for years, who'd betrayed each other and fought against each other and seemed to have permanently destroyed their relationships, were now united by something more powerful than their personal issues: their shared pride in what they'd built together and their refusal to let anyone diminish it. The reunion happened on Monday Night Raw during what was supposed to be Bron Breakker's championship celebration. Bron had just won a major title and was in the ring with his allies, cutting promos about representing WWE's future and how the old guard needed to accept that their time was over. Then the lights went out. When they came back on, Roman Reigns was standing on the entrance ramp. The crowd erupted, but the reaction intensified when Seth Rollins emerged from one side of the arena and Dean Ambrose appeared from the other side. The 3 former Shield members surrounded the ring from different angles, just like they used to, and the visual of them working in coordinated fashion again sent chills through everyone watching. They didn't come through the crowd in tactical gear because this wasn't about recreating nostalgia, this was about reminding everyone what the Shield represented at its core: 3 incredibly talented wrestlers who became unstoppable when they worked together with unified purpose. Roman, Seth, and Dean entered the ring simultaneously, and Bron Breakker's confident expression immediately changed to concern as he realized what was happening. His allies tried to defend him, but the Shield systematically dismantled everyone in the ring with the kind of coordinated efficiency that demonstrated why they'd been so dominant years ago. The destruction was clinical and brutal. Each Shield member seemed to know instinctively where the others would be and what they would do, falling back into the chemistry and coordination that had made them special despite years apart. Bron Breakker himself took the worst of the beating, with all 3 Shield members delivering their signature moves in succession before Roman, Seth, and Dean stood over him in the iconic Shield pose. But the most powerful moment came after the destruction, when Roman took the microphone and addressed Bron directly. "You asked if we'd prove you wrong about the Shield's legacy. Consider yourself educated. The Shield mattered because when the three of us decided someone needed to be dealt with, that person got dealt with. Not because we jumped them 3-on-1 like cowards, because we were individually excellent and collectively unstoppable. You disrespected something that meant everything to millions of people, and now you understand the consequences. Seth took the mic next. The Shield didn't need to last forever to be important. We changed WWE permanently in 3 years. We set the standard for what modern faction warfare looks like. We launched 3 Hall of Fame careers. And most importantly, we created something that transcends our individual egos and our personal problems. You're talented, Bron, but you're not even close to understanding what legacy actually means. Dean finished with characteristic intensity. I came back just to be here for this moment. Just to make sure you understood that disrespecting the Shield isn't a storyline or a promo, it's a mistake that gets corrected violently. Consider yourself corrected. The 3 Shield members left together, and while there was no warm embrace or emotional reconciliation, there was clear mutual respect in how they acknowledged each other before going their separate ways. This wasn't about becoming brothers again, it was about protecting something they'd built together that was bigger than any of their individual accomplishments. Now here's the question that's going to divide the entire wrestling community: was the Shield's reunion a beautiful moment that proved some bonds transcend betrayal and time, or was it a cynical alliance where 3 proud men temporarily set aside their hatred to destroy someone who bruised their egos? Your answer reveals whether you're a romantic who believes in the power of brotherhood and shared history, or a cynic who sees this as 3 individuals protecting their brand rather than genuinely reconciling. Here's the even more controversial question: did Bron Breakker deserve to be destroyed for his disrespectful promo, or should he be celebrated for having the courage to challenge sacred cows and question whether past legends are really as great as everyone claims? Tell me in the comments, do you think the Shield's reunion will last beyond this one moment, or will Roman, Seth, and Dean immediately go back to their separate paths now that they've made their point? And here's what I really want to know: if you were a young wrestler like Bron Breakker trying to establish yourself, would you use the strategy of attacking beloved legacy acts to get attention, or is that disrespect something that will ultimately hurt your career more than it helps? The Shield's reunion to destroy Bron Breakker wasn't a traditional heartwarming story of brothers overcoming their differences. It was something more complex and perhaps more realistic: 3 men who genuinely dislike each other in many ways but who share something so important that protecting it became more urgent than nursing their grudges. The reunion reminded everyone why the Shield mattered while also acknowledging that the betrayal and pain between these 3 men is real and lasting. They can work together when necessary, but they're not brothers anymore. They're former partners with shared history and mutual respect for what they accomplished, even if they can't stand each other personally. And Bron Breakker learned the hardest possible lesson: some legacies are protected not by nostalgia or sentimentality, but by the people who built them being willing to set aside everything else to defend what they created together.